Hey guys, my essay is going to be over poverty. If you take a look back in history of poverty, it's been throughout the world for years. So, in the late 18th century and the 19th century, Britain used a social ranking system. It's also known as the feudal system. Everyone has heard of it at some point or another. So at the top of this feudal system was the king, and then the nobles, the knights, and then the peasants. So this demonstrates poverty of that time. In the 18th century, the peasants demonstrates the poverty level as we are today. As in today, the homeless are considered our poverty level, or you can go a little bit higher, people who are living paycheck to paycheck, that can also be below the poverty line. There was a good story we read in Dr. Ross's class called A Modest Proposal, and it demonstrated a way to surpass poverty and how to get rid of it. So in that story, you read that a way to get rid of poverty is the rich will buy the children from the poor, and then they will eat the children. And that was a way to get rid of poverty, because if the poor get rid of their children that they had, it gets rid of part of their income that they have to spend on those children. So they actually get money from the rich because they sell their children, and then the wealthy get to eat the children for food. And that was a good demonstration of poverty of that time, a way to get rid of it, but it was written sarcastically, not for real purposes. Now it's time to talk about the world's current poverty situation. Nearly 10% of the world's population is in poverty. This basically means almost 1 billion people in the world are living below the poverty line. This is a big problem today. The worst thing about this is the people in poverty, majority of them are living on the streets, and with these people living on the streets, they have no shelter, no home, or nowhere to go. And the big problem with this is natural disasters. That's one of the worst things that can happen to the homeless people. They can't get away from it. So when I was doing research over my paper, I found a study by the Sustainable Development Goals, and they showed more than 1.35 million homeless people have been killed by some type of natural disaster. That can be from tornado, hurricane, tsunami, earthquake. 1.35 million homeless people have died from natural disasters within the last 10 years. Most of the people who are homeless live below the poverty line. Well, obviously. Another point to look into is human conflict. Poverty creates human conflict. Back then, when the feudal system was a thing, and even today, if you look at homeless people, they're looking for resources. It starts to become kind of like Darwin's natural selection. People start to fight. People start to steal. Because let's say a homeless person needs medical supplies. They can't just go buy it. So this is when they start getting into drugs, and they start stealing drugs from drugstores. And this creates human conflict. Or just simply fighting over food. Two homeless guys fighting over food. Survival of the fittest. The strongest will win, and the weak will get weeded out. That's just how human society works with, not even human society, it's how society works today, even with animals. The strong win, and the weak get weeded out. People will do what they have to do to survive. That's just how it is. Another problem in today's poverty, and the history of the fact of the matter, is children have always been the victim of poverty. This is one thing that I looked into, and I hate this the most, is that children are always the victim. And when you look into this, children have always been the victim of poverty, even back then. In the Modest Proposal, what are the children? They're nothing to them. Food. Even though it is sarcastic, children are the food, and it's horrible. Now you look into the aspects of the children of the poverty, of the poor. These children are the victims because they go to school They may not have eaten that day or the day before. They may be wearing the same clothes. And this creates bullying. When you get into 5th and 6th grade, kids start bullying. They start being really rude. And when they start noticing that this kid smells because he hasn't had a shower in a week because his family can't afford to have water in their house. So kids are picking on him, which creates bullying, which goes back to human conflict. It all kind of ties in together. To narrow the subject into the main point, now I'm going to talk about poverty in a certain area. This was for my essay 4. I did my essay over Niger. Niger is the poorest country in the world, and this is also what my video is going to be about. Niger is a northern African country, and they have the lowest poverty line in the world. So the average amount of schooling or education that a child gets in Niger is 2 years of education. We get 13. They get 2 years. 2 years of education. Their government keeps the people dumb so they can control them. The biggest problem with Niger is the average woman also has 7 children. They also usually have their first child. They usually get married at 15 and have their first child at 16. And they have 7 children in their lifetime. Now, how does a family who can't even support themselves have 7 children? What they do is they use those 7 children for work. There's no schooling, and there's no worry of income. These 7 children, they don't get food every day. These people are drinking out of streams, rivers, muddy water, and they start to create illnesses, and they start to get sick because they have poor nutrition habits. It is expected that Niger will actually double in population by 2050 because of the population growth that the women are creating with having 7 children. The average housing in Niger is made up of dirt and water. Their houses are made up of mud bricks, and they mold them together and they stack them on top of each other, and that is the average housing. It is really sad. Now, there is a good thing. You will also see in the video that I'm going to share that there are many different programs that have been trying to help out Niger and the Nigerians. They are going through such a rough time with their government, and I kind of named 2 in my paper called Concern Worldwide. They connected with 12 villages and 1,000 families in Niger, and they helped increase the quality of healthcare services. They helped improve food security and nutrition, and they helped with their education for the children, it helps a lot. And they actually have been expanding, and now they are currently over 25 villages, and it helps over 26,000 families a year, which is outstanding. It helps so much. And then there's one more program that you will actually see in the video called Save a Child. And Save a Child actually, those people that are having too much children where they can't support them, Save a Child, this program actually helps take a child out of Niger. And it's sad to see them get away from their family, but it's so they can live a proper life and they aren't getting sick and dying, because a lot of their kids actually die from malnutrition. So Niger is dealing with many problems today, as we know, and I hope they can find a way to get rid of their poverty, because they have been the country in the most poverty within the last 20 years, and they've been at the top of the list. But that's basically my presentation. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope I can see you guys soon. Thank you.